And then you have the price of freedom. What is the price of freedom? It's expensive. We know that. And we're not talking just about the history books, you know, all those brave men and women that fought and died, paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we can be free. Others that went to war, maybe they survived the war but came back with demons of their own. The men and women that were here on American soil during those wars, but yet doing their best effort to keep this country going, support the soldiers overseas. It's also expensive in your daily life, the sacrifices that you make, the getting up, the going to work, the going to school, getting an education, learning a skill trade, learning a craft, practicing. It takes time. It takes investment in you. Someone asked me one time, what is the best piece of advice that I could give to college students? I was teaching at a college at the time, and I was on a panel of success, or a panel that people could, of faculty members that people could ask questions to. And the question was, what's the best piece of advice? And I simply said, invest in yourself. Because if you don't invest in yourself, why are you going to invest in anybody else? You can invest in yourself and invest in other people as well, but you got to put yourself front and center. It is okay to be selfish for you if you are investing in yourself and trying to get yourself better. I'm not saying be selfish and kick everybody else to the curb, but if you are going to school, if you are trying to build a company, if you are trying to build a brand, if you're doing something and it takes you away from your friend group, instead of Saturday night at the bar or Saturday night hanging out, whatever it is that you do socially, and you are instead building that business, learning that trade, that craft, whatever it is, bettering yourself because you have dreams, you have goals, you have ambitions that you want to achieve, that's okay. It's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to put yourself first, even sometimes with family, because how are you going to make your family better if you are the weakest link? If you are the weakest link, your family's not going to grow. You've got to be the strong link, right? We all know that. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, you're only as good as the weakest link. We all got to make our links strong. So we know it's expensive. But what could be, let's just throw out maybe four costs that come with freedom. The cost that a lot of people maybe try to avoid, maybe they try to dodge. Well, the first one obviously is responsibility. We've got to be responsible for what we do, our actions, who we are. So if we have freedom, we have to have accountability. If we have personal freedom, then we have to have accountability about what we do with our body, what we do with our lifestyle, what we do with our family, what we do with our faith, how we live. We have to be accountable for it. We make those decisions to be free. If we have the ability to choose, to act, to speak, believe, to move, to build without unfair restraint, then we have to be accountable for our actions and what we do, what we say. We can't stay in that mentality that's somebody else's fault. And that's where we are in America. It's always blame somebody else. Right now, it's blame Trump. Everything is blaming Trump, even though we've had decades old problems that are still around. And we have politicians that have been on Capitol Hill for decades. They've never solved the problem, but we're going to blame somebody else. It's always blame somebody else, somebody else's fault. Well, if we stay in that mentality, we're not going to grow. We're not going to improve. We're not going to raise the standard in our lives. We're going to get basically status quo is dying on the vine. We have to get out of that. Because if we have a blaming lifestyle, blame everybody else, cry and complain it didn't work out, then nothing's going to change. Because we have to raise the standard in our lives. Our standard has to change in order for us to change. And so one of the costs of freedom is maybe personal responsibility. Responsibility in our personal freedom, in our political freedom, and even in our economic freedom. Think about it. We have to be accountable for the money we spend. If we overspend, then we're not going to reach our financial goals. If we make bad business decisions, maybe our business fails. How can we build wealth if we're making bad decisions? We have to be accountable for that. Another cost might be tolerance. In a free country, everybody has an opinion. In America, everybody has an opinion. And the opposite opinion, the initial response is drawing hate. How many times have you heard one side tell the other, you're racist, you're a homophobe, you're bigoted, you're white supremacist, got to take you out? Hate. Nobody can have a civilized conversation anymore. But in a free country, you're going to hear opinions that you hate. Are you going to delete everyone that you disagree with? There may be times you have to because it becomes really hateful, evil, and vile. But are you going to delete everyone who disagrees with you? You're going to be pretty much alone or pretty much miserable. Misery loves company. Tolerance doesn't mean you have to be in agreement. Remember that. It means you can coexist and have different beliefs, different ideologies, but you don't have to be a bully about your side. So be tolerant. Have courage. That might be another price of freedom. Freedom requires people willing to speak up when it's costly. Tell the truth when it's unpopular. Do the right thing when it's inconvenient. That's something difficult to do. A lot of people don't want to tell the truth, period, let alone when it's unpopular. Doing the right thing when it's inconvenient. How about just doing the right thing, period? Willing to speak up, period. You don't even need to add the qualifier, speak up when it's costly, just speak up. Tell the truth. You don't need the qualifier when it's unpopular, tell the truth. Do the right thing when it's inconvenient. What about just doing the right thing? And then you have self-control, the cost of freedom, self-control. This is more of a personal thing. Freedom gives you a choice, but if you have no discipline, no self-discipline, your choices will bury you. You can spend money how you want. If you overspend, you're going to be in trouble. If you have an addiction and that addiction costs you money, whether it's a gambling addiction, a drug addiction, an alcohol addiction, you're going to be spending. And then ultimately, to get more money, it might lead to a criminal lifestyle. But let's take that extreme out of the picture. If you just overspend, then you become a debt to your creditors, and debt becomes your dictator. You can eat what you want. No one's telling you what to eat, unless, of course, maybe the doctor and you have some medical condition, right? But you can eat what you want. Doesn't matter. But if you eat poorly, maybe you gain weight, maybe you do then develop some medical issues, well, then your health becomes your prison. You can scroll all you want on social media. You can binge on Netflix and chill, do whatever you want. But then your future shrinks. All your goals, your ambitions, they die because you're just sitting there. So liberty does depend on limits. And your life, my life, we need guardrails too. So think about it. Your debt can become your dictator. Your health can become your prison. And depending upon those choices that you make, your future begins to shrink. Something to keep in mind. So what about the difference between, let's say, people that don't want freedom, but they want permission? When that freedom turns into excuses. When you want permission to stay undisciplined. So you say, I have the right to do whatever. I have the freedom to do whatever I want. Yeah, but now you're undisciplined. You have the freedom to eat whatever you want. You have the freedom to spend whatever you want. You have the freedom to not show up to work. You have the freedom to do all this stuff. Well, you're undisciplined. You're unaccountable. You're reckless. And now you're living low standards. And you call it my right. I have the right to. Do you really? Well, you're costing yourself your personal freedom. You're costing yourself your economic freedom. And you might be costing yourself your political freedom depending upon what you do. So freedom says I can choose. I accept the consequences. Permission says I can do whatever I want and nobody can check me. Think about that. Freedom says I can choose and I accept the consequences. Permission says I can do whatever I want and nobody can check me. Well, if you're looking for permission, that's not freedom, that's chaos. Like this, free speech doesn't mean consequence-free speech. You can't threaten the president. You can't say certain things. There's consequences for what you say. My rights don't mean that I get to trample your rights. Your rights don't mean you get to trample my rights. There's consequences. Loving America doesn't mean ignoring America, nor does criticizing or critiquing America doesn't mean hating America, although a lot of people do hate America. We know that. They critique it because they do hate it. But if you are genuinely looking at freedom and liberty from the perspective of personal freedom, from economic freedom, from political freedom, that is raising the standard in your life from that mindset so that you can improve yourself. Because a lot of people that just criticize America because they hate, they're not improving anything. Nobody's improving anything. But if you want to improve yourself, let's just start there, forget about everybody else, improve yourself, then you can critique without hate. So mature freedom does have balance. Freedom without standards becomes chaos. Liberty without character becomes entitlement. And that's where we're at today. A lot of people want liberty without character. They want entitlement. I'm entitled to this. I want this. And that's a bad place to be. So how can we raise the standard in our lives? Since freedom isn't a feeling, it's a practice. Let's say like freedom workout we can do. Well, we can know where we stand. We can define our values. Or we can let others define our values. Let's say like the internet or social media. Because if you don't define your values, somebody else will. And then you'll end up like a jellyfish, just bobbing in the ocean, wherever the tide takes you. No spine, no backbone. Jellyfish. So know what you stand for. Use your voice wisely. Speak with clarity, not cruelty. Build, don't just bash. And then courage plus wisdom, that equals power. Courage plus wisdom is power. Know what you stand for. Use your voice wisely. Build self-discipline like it's your job. Protect the rights of people you disagree with. The true test of freedom isn't how you treat people who agree with you. It's how you treat people that you disagree with. Just like character is not what you do in front of everybody, but what you do in the still quiet of by yourself. You can serve something bigger than yourself. Freedom isn't just flexing, it's building. Building stronger families, stronger communities, higher standards. Freedom is an opportunity. Standards determine the outcome. Freedom is the opportunity. Standards determine the outcome.